Hey everyone, what's up? This is Uri for Gorilla Poker. In this video I'm going to be bringing you a high stakes hand history analysis, 20k and also 100-200 blinds played on ACR between LLinusLLove and Nacho, two very good high stakes pros who have been in the streets reg battling a lot lately with a few other well-known players. So this hand is BVB. Nacho opens a small blind for 3x, Linus calls, roughly maybe 120 deep. It's always important to know how deep you are, since if you get significantly shallower or significantly deeper, the strategies are going to change. So as you get deeper and deeper, things are more about who has the nuts. And as you get shallower and shallower, top pair becomes more the nuts or over pairs become more the nuts. So if this were 40 deep, out of position would probably have a bigger advantage than if it's 100 deep, and bigger than if it's 200 deep, just because out of position's advantage comes from over pairs, and those are worth a lot more at a certain SPR and a lot less as you get shallower. So this is a better board for Nacho, but not necessarily one that gets range bet. Because of his overpair advantage, there's a nice incentive to just start building the pot with all those pocket tens, pocket jacks, pocket queens hands, and then play a more polar strategy with a bigger size. This is indeed what Nacho does with a 75% pot size bet. Not the GTO bet size in this spot. I think I cover this in one of my courses, but you're supposed to go bigger here in terms of if you had to pick a single size, but it's not important for your EV, guys. The important thing is to implement correctly and to understand what's going on. So going 75% pot, Nacho, I'm guessing, can go roughly 5s or ace-4 plus for value. Of course, those are not going to be high frequency hands. I think the high frequency hands are going to be the over pairs and the good nines, so ace-9, king-9, queen-9. Of course, you can go lower nines because you're going 75% pot. And there's probably going to be some ace-4, pocket 5s, pocket 6s types hands just betting for protection in this bet size. Linus goes for a raise, so Linus in this instance is saying, I'm raising a polarized value range that beats the center of weight of your range. And I would assume this starts at roughly ace-9 plus, maybe king-9 plus, because Nacho went 75% pot. Like we said, his range for betting can be fairly wide. And this is one of those instances where if Nacho has tens, jacks, queens that's beating ace-9, he is supposed to just go with it a decent amount of the time and just get coolered when he's beat. But if he weren't doing that, then Linus could kind of freeze up the action very cheaply on a board where Nacho's range wants to pile in tons of money. So Nacho is supposed to 3-bet quite often with over pairs and some bluffs. He does do this in this case, and Linus makes a call. So already very unique situation, and it's very easy to get lost in terms of what each player's range is. So I'll give you guys kind of an intuitive hint. Like I said, rather than thinking about the entirety of the range, let's think of the center of the range. The center of Nacho's range is going to be tens, jacks, queens. Those are kind of the center of weight of his range. His bluffs are going to be all over the place. He's going to have maybe ace-9 and sets in 2 pairs sometimes, but the center of the range is tens, jacks, queens, and that's what you should be thinking of when you're playing against Nacho. LLinusLLove, on the other hand, because the 3-bet was not huge, he's still got his full value range of, king-9, ace-9. He's got whichever bluffs he raised, so it could be something like 4 or 5 suited or ace-2 suited with a backdoor flush draw, maybe ace-3, ace-5, 5-6, so all of the gut shots, and possibly even something like 10-8 of diamonds. I think we'll be able to call given how few draws there are on this board. Or, Jack 10 of diamonds, Queen 10 of diamonds, these kind of backdoor draws will probably still be able to float given the pot odds. But yeah, this is just me guessing, and this is how I would imagine the ranges. Of course, Linus is going to have deuces and 4s sometimes, but those are not the center of his range, and they're not what you're really playing against as Nacho. So we get the Queen of Diamonds turn, relatively innocent looking turn. Like we said, Linus can't probably raise queen 9, it's more king 9 and ace 9, so the queen being a queen and not a king or an ace allows Nacho to actually keep firing quite often, and I would expect his range to just be fairly aggro on the queen for that reason, and on most cards that are not ace, king, or 9, maybe deuce 3, 4, 5 as well. So Nacho fires with a small bet. I would have thought that you should go bigger here in terms of your range, because I think tens is still putting in stacks, so I'd have gone a bit bigger. But not very important. The idea is, like we said, just keep betting those hands. Linus makes a call. Given how small the bet is, Linus is going to have to call this bet a lot. Now, if he has a float like 7-8 of hearts or 6-7 of hearts, of course he can fold. All his floats with diamonds continue, anything with overcards is now strong enough to continue, and any pair that he had is for the most part pure continuing or close to it, just because the bet is so small. So this is a bet, like I said, I think a too small bet for this spot, and Linus is not going to be doing much folding. Okay, King of Clubs river. This does improve Linus a little bit, right? Like we said, he's going to have some king 9, although more weighted to ace 9, but also some hands like, and here I'm not sure, I feel like Linus should have some king 10, king jack suited sometimes with a backdoor that he raised and then turned the gut shot, so hit with those sometimes. I could see king deuce of diamonds, king 4 of diamonds, so some like suited deuces and 4s that raise and can't fold to the turn or the 3-bet. So he improves a little bit. Of course, Jack 10, which I forgot. I think even Jack 10 offsuit potentially raising flop for Linus and calling turn and improving, which is huge, right? 3 to a straight. If you have the backdoor, it's 3 to a flush, and 2 overcards and blocking some of the value range. And yeah, Jack 10, very, very heavy hand in Linus's range. I'd guess once ranges are narrowed this much. So if we were thinking about the center of Nacho's range is 10s, jacks, queens, 10s and jacks now no longer really able to value bet, so we would expect to see a lot of checks, and maybe something like queens, or jack 10 if he has it would check to protect those some of the time. So Nacho checks, Linus decides to go all in. Now, we always want to think of value and bluffs. I would guess value would be anything that beats jacks or 10s is close. Any king feels like it could go for this. I'm guessing a queen would probably be a bit too thin, but I'm not sure. It might be okay. Now, for bluffs, we're going to expect ace 3, ace 5, 5, 6, and some low diamonds. I don't think Linus often wins with a pair, so if he had some 4x of diamonds, like ace 4 of diamonds, maybe that gets turned into a bluff. Nacho makes the call, so Nacho has jack of diamonds, jack of spades, which if we think about all the streets, flop seems perfect, turn seems perfect, but I think size too small. And then river check and facing the shove, because this is kind of the center of your range, probably just mixes. So hand might look crazy, like how do you get here with jacks, but if you give Linus credit for bluffing, flop makes sense, turn makes sense, and river you just randomize calling and folding. Linus shows up with king 9 of hearts, with a backdoor of course, so makes sense to raise flop, always calling turn, always shoving river. So kind of crazy looking hand, but I think it also kind of makes sense. And let's take a look in PioSOLVER and see what the solver has to say. Okay guys, so 75% flop c-bet for Nacho, and like I said, we're going to have lots of 10s, jacks, queens, also more kings and aces than I would have thought. Personally, I would have gone more on 10s through queens and less on kings through aces. Bunch of 9x, and also, like I was saying, 5, 6s and 4x. And if you want to understand why 4x is betting 75% pot, or why 5s is betting, which is traditionally a polarized c-bet, what you need to realize is that this is an appropriate pot size for this hand. Putting 75% pot into the pot kind of makes it so if your opponent calls, you've gotten the appropriate amount of value and protection for your hand. not really looking for more than that. And so any hand where this kind of makes sense, so say we bet and get called, and our equity with fives or with ace 4, king 4, queen 4 would be a bit over 50, plus we get tons of protection, just kind of, plus EV bet and take it from there, because those hands, whether you bet them and then check or you check, are not going to be doing well facing action, but at least you got your protection and built your pot. So yeah, we make the bet. Linus, very, very few raises. And if we look at the range, it's ace 9. It's actually surprisingly low amount of raises. Makes me suspect maybe something is a bit wrong in my sim, although maybe not, maybe just because it's polarized. So we have ace 9 and jack 10, kind of all stars here. Queen 10, queen jack with backdoors, like I was saying, and 5, 6. Now everything here is low frequency because the range is low frequency, but we're still thinking of the center of the range. So we have deuces, 4, deuce 4s, ace 9, and king 9 is in there, very, very, very tiny frequency. But once we get into the raising node, like I was saying, Nacho is going to 3-bet a lot, very, very aggressively, with 10s plus, also with ace 9 and king 9, and his 4x and his deuce x and his gut shots and his jack 10s with a backdoor, just very, very aggressively going for it. And here Linus is gonna fold some backdoor stuff. Jack 10 with no backdoor can fold, and his weaker raises fold, but not very much folding. So turn queen of diamonds. Here I put a third pot or a shove for Nacho, so we're not gonna get to see the correct bet size, but certainly a very aggressive card for him, and one where, like we were saying, the center of the range, so 10s plus, in this case ace 9 and king 9 as well, keep betting a lot, and kind of the rest of the range just keeps firing because queen is a good turn card, and these hands are now something like king 4. It's just turned itself into a bluff, but yeah, once you 3-bet flop, there's not much of a checking range, so your 4x and your 2x are just blocker bluffs, more or less. So we make the bet, Linus with very few folds. They're coming from some of the gut shots, some of the low pairs, and of course something like king 9 would be calling. And if we go to the river, king of clubs, Nacho can actually keep block betting a reasonable amount with 10s and jacks and queen x, but checking also reasonable with these hands, and then you would be checking ace 9, pocket 10s, pocket jacks, and then some queens, queen 9, king 9 as traps, maybe aces as sort of a trap. And with your deuce x and 4x, we're just turning these into bluffs. They didn't 3-bet to showdown, let's say. So here we check, and if you want to see Linus's strat, of course he will shove king 9. And I was unsure whether or not he would shove with a queen. You guys can see it's mixed, but he's checking with a king. Now this is probably because when you have a queen you block pocket queens, which is maybe more frequent, but I'm guessing all of these are going to be kind of close in EV. You can see shoving or checking a king is not a big EV difference, so these things depend mostly on how often your opponent is bluffing or bluff catching, or how often he is trapping. And yeah, Linus will bluff all of his, 6-5 of diamonds, 5-3 suited, and any kind of 4x or deuce x with diamonds that he got here with is mostly bluffing. Ace 3 and ace 5 could bluff, but blocker magic decide not to. And Nacho is playing kind of like we would expect, with 10s and jacks mixing, ace 9 mixing. These were the kind of centers of the range, and pure calling with his trap 2 pairs and trapped pocket aces. Now, had Linus shoved queen jack, he'd be just a bit over 50% equity, but had he shoved king jack, he'd be a bit below. So this is the solver blocker magic. I think that's it for this hand. If you guys want to kind of deconstruct it in your head in terms of what we learned, it's mostly that when you're out of position, you just kind of have to close your eyes and pile in with hands and kind of concede that you're sometimes beat to sets. Both players played somewhat accurately. I'm never gonna judge too deep the exact combo. Like I said, ranges are different and settings are different. I think King 9 is a type of raise that makes sense, and every play by both players in this hand made sense. So yeah, well played guys. And yeah, hope everyone enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.